First up, Congressman Michael Guest from Mississippi's 3rd District, chairman of the Subcommittee on Border Security and Enforcement. And this ties in a lot with a simple phrase. Choices have consequences. Elections have consequences. The votes you cast determine those who are in charge of your security or that entire environment that we have as a country. And Congressman, what we have now seen for years, highlighted by the plot for UFC 250 at the White House, and what has been allowed by Democrat open border policies, Democrat pro-terrorist support by some of their elected members, some right there in that body with you, is coming into full view, especially with a global event in the Americas, Mexico, Canada, and here in the United States, with most of the games, the FIFA games, the world that's visiting. On my plane last night, there were people with every kind of team shirt on headed to Miami. But there are real threats out there. So let's talk about protecting not just the homeland, but especially now in the midst of a global event.
Yeah, and look, what we saw under the Biden administration, the flood of illegal immigrants coming into the country, I mean, it can be described as nothing less than unprecedented. Thank God we elected Donald Trump to be the 47th president of the United States. We saw Trump take very aggressive actions along the southwest border, and now we have the most secure border in our nation's history. And that can only be attributed to the acts of this administration and the things that they did as far as policy, procedure, and resources that they put in place to stop the flow of illegal immigration on the southern border. That also ties into what we're seeing going on today, which is FIFA World Cup. We got America 250. We know that is coming up next week as America celebrates the 250 years of the founding of this great nation. But we also have going on across the United States in 11 different host cities. There will be games that will be playing out throughout the entirety over a 40-day stretch, with games also being played in Canada and also Mexico. So that creates challenges as we are trying to protect those 11 sites. We are anticipating somewhere between 5 and 7 million visitors coming to the United States just for the World Cup. And so these create unique security challenges. But I'll tell you that I believe that the men and women of our federal, state, and local law enforcement, they are up to the task. This planning has been going into place for these events now for well over a year. The federal government has allocated somewhere between $800 million and $1 billion for our local and state partners for additional manpower, equipment, anti-drone detection technology. And I believe that we are as prepared. And so far, we have seen the games that have been played across the country. They have gone off without any real security concerns. So I'm proud of what our law enforcement has been able to do. The work of the FBI, the work of DHS, the work of FEMA, and again, the work of our local partners to secure these 11 sites across the country.
Congressman, to get too proud, you have to prepare and be preventative in many ways. And, kudos to the Republicans and the Homeland Security, Republicans in Congress for that matter. There was a $625 million $625 million secured for World Cup security preparations. There was another $500 million for state, local, and tribal, territorial, for that matter, law enforcement. So a lot of this came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to make sure, and then added by the Secure America Act to make sure that we had the capability. And, of course, we've got the White House Task Force led by Andrew Giuliani. I can tell you this. I ran into Gianni Infantini yesterday. We had dinner about 6 weeks or so ago before the World Cup kicked off, and it was part of a conversation. I asked him, I said, how are things going? And his response was, for like smooth, something to that effect. Things are going well. They're seeing what you're talking about play out literally as the games continue to play out. And there's still a lot of concern out there. So that takes preparation, right? You need to have that in place. However, I want to focus on the enemy within a little bit more. And I know you remember the Biden administration. Do you remember Joe Biden saying Antifa is just an idea? You remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Between he and Secretary Mayorkas, I think I disagreed with about everything they said as it related to Homeland Security. But go ahead. I do remember him making those statements.
So now we have, from the enemy within category, as Chris Swecker, former FBI director, pointed out yesterday on the show. And I don't think ever in my career I've said this as directly as I'm about to say. But even the headline that says former Marine gets 100 years in prison, Benjamin Song, when you do what he has done, that title, former Marine, is an honor. It's an honor. He's an ex-Marine. That's the only, you get kicked out. No Marine wants you. None of us want you when you are a traitor to this country and you get sentenced to 100 years for a violent far-left domestic terrorist group like Antifa. But this is a problem we have to address in this country, and this case is one case, multiple sentences, over 450 years of sentencing with all the defendants, and there's more to come. But we have to tackle that. At the Homeland Security Committee and your committees, how do we make sure that we are as vigilant, as capable, and in some cases, as responsive as fast as possible?
And you're right. It's not just Antifa. I mean, we also see other individuals who have grown up in the United States who have become radicalized from one extreme or the other, and that seek to carry out attacks on the homeland. I mean, we look at these young individuals who were recently arrested for carrying out or for a plot where they were attempting to carry out an attack on the fight that occurred just 2 weeks ago on the White House lawn. And so there are multiple groups who are operating, some under the tag of Antifa, some of your Muslim extremist groups who seek to radicalize people within the United States. And so I think it begins first with the intelligence gathering of our law enforcement. When you look at why we are looking at extending Section 702 of FISA so that we can have access to information that is critical to the protection of the people of this country. It begins there with the intelligence gathering, and it also, a close second to that is making sure that we have the men and women in place in these key federal agencies who can take that information, who can look at that and who can analyze that information and then make crucial decisions to be able to interrupt these plots at the very initial phases before they're actually ever able to gain steam. And look, that's why we put the Homeland Security in place. After 9/11, we saw that too many of our intelligence gathering agencies, too many of our law enforcement agencies, that they were siloed, that there was not the sharing of information, that if information would have been shared between these different agencies, that it may have been possible to have connected the dots and stopped 9/11. And so that's why the Committee on Homeland Security exists. That's why the Department of Homeland Security exists, to make sure that we are doing everything within our control to keep all American citizens safe.
We need to have trust, and with the change in administration, that trust is on its way to being rebuilt with a new Trump administration, new leaders at the FBI, DOJ, people who want to get the job done. Are you confident, given what we've seen with weaponization from the Obama years through the Biden years, and even weaponization in the first Trump term against, I will say, the Republicans, the right, and anyone that doesn't agree with this red, Green-Blue Alliance, of which the Democrat Party is a full-fledged member right now, certainly including some of those in Congress with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and more. Are you confident that our system is better today, that some of those bureaucrats, because it's not just Alejandro Mayorkas, not just Joe Biden, not just the people at the top, but there are people in these bureaus and agencies that were carrying out those orders?
Yeah, and look, as far as the systems, I have complete confidence in the systems that we have in place. The question becomes, how do we use that information? How do we act upon that information? How do different administrations prioritize that information? And do they act in a way where they are prioritizing protecting American citizens? Or do they do what we saw under the Biden administration? Do they prioritize policies such as open borders? And so the information, the policy or the procedures to gather the information exist. But it is key upon those people who then look at that information as to how they respond. And we saw under the Biden administration that they failed to respond to many of the challenges that had been identified. And so that is why you talked about elections and the importance of elections, and that elections have consequences. When people go to the polls, they need to be able to factor in, are the people that I am seeking to vote for, the people that I'm seeking to allow to hold office, who are they going to prioritize? Are they going to prioritize the security of this country first, or are they going to let millions of people flood across the borders unchecked, unvetted, and create, in some instances, chaos in some of our major cities? And so, am I confident in the systems? Yes. But the systems are dependent upon the political appointees that are put in place to then make the crucial decision once the information is gathered. And I think that is what we saw happen under the Biden-Harris administration, those failures which made Americans less safe.
There are other attempts that have been made. We now have chatter, I'll use that term, Congressman, from some quarters and security quarters about ISIS and potential, would they try to carry out an attack, or some Muslim-affiliated group that would carry out an attack, whether it's pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, pro-whatever they want to call it. And then, of course, we have an enemy in Iran, and we have an enemy in the CCP, which weaponizes any group, cartel or otherwise, to disrupt and deconstruct America and our events. How concerned are you about that? And is there more that can be done, or what is being done?
I think as far as the threat matrix, the threat landscape, you're right. I mean, you give a great example of the multitude of groups that exist that would love to cause harm to the United States. And I think that group is very diverse, as you talked about. And so I would have to agree with you that on the threat matrix landscape, that we are probably at the highest level that we have seen probably since 9/11. And look, 9/11 was a failure of the collection of information, the analyzing of that information, and then acting upon that. And so, yes, you talk about groups that are terrorist organizations. You talk about nation states such as Iran, a nation that we are currently still, though the hostilities have ceased, there is not peace between the two agencies or the two nations. You talk about China and their particularly cyber technology. I think that's one thing that as we look at what do we need to do going forward to harden America against future attacks, I think cyber needs to be the area that we need to continue to focus on. We know that China has a robust cyber ability, that Iran, North Korea are seeking to develop cyber capacities, the Soviet Union, that many of these terrorist organizations are also trying to build out cyber as part of their offensive network. So we've got to make sure that we are hardening our defenses and also that we know that we have offensive capabilities, and when necessary, we should use our cyber offensive capabilities if we believe that an attack is imminent.
Congressman Michael Guest, representing Mississippi's 3rd District, chairman of the Subcommittee on Border Security and Enforcement. Congressman, thank you for joining me this morning.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Great talking to you again, and look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time and the facts and the discussion.